Does God want a separation of church and state? Should Christians be voting biblical principles? Does it really matter who you vote for? Join Pastor Jerry Cook as he endeavors to answer these and many other questions over the next hour on Politics in the Pulpit. And now, Pastor Jerry Cook.
Good afternoon and happy Thanksgiving to all of you out there in Radio Land. You're listening to Politics in the Pulpit here on KHTS AM 1220 and FM 98.1, your hometown station. I am your holy host, Pastor Jerry Cook, back from yet another hunting expedition, this time for the elusive wapiti, or elk, for those of you who don't like to hunt, in the purple state of Colorado. Unfortunately for me, no elk was harvested this trip, but on the other hand, a good day for the elk. However, I did have a great time. It's always wonderful to traipse around the woods of Colorado in hunter orange. It looked like a giant pumpkin. And it was extremely cold, but it is what it is. When you go out hunting, you hopefully dress for the occasion. But I want to thank Samuel Green for sitting in last Wednesday discussing all things pro-life. Samuel, as you may have heard last Wednesday, is the founder of Reason for Life, a wonderful pro-life ministry. And Samuel, I think, would be a great addition to any church or group who wants to have a pro-life speaker who knows their stuff. So I encourage you to check out Reason for Life on the internet and Facebook, I believe, as well, and have Samuel come in and address your group. I think you'll be extremely blessed by the information that this man knows. But we have a great show on tap for today. Again, it's the day before Thanksgiving, the day before all the tryptophan starts to kick in. So we've got three topics that we're going to try to cram in to the next 45 minutes or so. And one of those things is going to be, should Thanksgiving be a national day of Thanksgiving or a national day of mourning? Well, if the woke crowd would have their way, it would be the latter. We'll deal with that a bit later. The second thing that we're going to hope to try to get into today is Trump is running in 2024. So what does that mean for the Republican Party, and what will the left do to stop him before 2024? I've got my theories as to what I think they might do, but hopefully my theory proves to be unfounded. And then thirdly, Lord willing, as we get around to it, things to be thankful for, as we are just hours away from Thanksgiving, and hopefully many of you are preparing meals or maybe heading somewhere to be with family, and Lord willing, you have a great day tomorrow, wherever it might be. But first, I wanted to talk about something that was brought to my attention a few days ago, actually when I was in Colorado, and I was wondering if you'd heard about the Satanic Temple sponsoring an after-school club up in the very conservative part of Kern County in a little town called Tehachapi. I got a news article right here that was given to me, and it says this: Tehachapi's Golden Hills Elementary School is getting a new after-school club, but it's not your typical dance or photography club. Instead, they'll be getting the After-School Satan Club, sponsored by the Satanic Temple and Reason Alliance. Ooh, Reason. The Satanic Temple is a non-theistic religious organization that is not to be confused with the Church of Satan. We wouldn't want to do that now, would we? The After School Satan Club was created within the last 10 years and meant to educate children and encourage critical thinking and not to teach Satanism, according to Lucian Greaves, the co-founder and spokesman of the After School Satan Club. Here's what this Lucian individual said, quote, "We keep religious matters out of the teachings of the After School Satan Clubs, and people often ask us, well then, why include Satanism at all, being that people are going to be offended by it? Well, the fact of the matter is there's nothing to be offended by, and we don't want people to be unaware of who we are when we run these programs, as we think there would be a more intense backlash if we were trying to hide it." End quote. Still, many guardians of students at Golden Hills Elementary School in Tehachapi are upset about the introduction of this after-school Satan Club and said it doesn't belong in schools. And the article goes on to say a few things about some of the teachers and some of the parents who have said some things rather negatively. But Paul Hicks here Paul Hicks will be the de facto leader for the new Tehachapi After School Satan Club and is also a critical thinking professor. Boy, doesn't that make you feel like a low person? A critical thinking professor. He said Christian-based clubs like the Good News Club is one reason why they think schools need the After School Satan Club, because there's nothing that says education like Satan. There's currently a Good News Club there, which is teaching kids to go save souls for Jesus at the school. We want to give an alternative point of view. So, what is the alternative point of view? The Good News Club says, let's go save souls, and the Satan Club says, let's go damn them? What exactly would be the point of view? Although Satan is in the name, conversations about Satan aren't on the club's agenda. And this Paul Hicks guy says, quote, I'm not teaching these kids to be satanic. I'm not teaching these kids that they need to hail Satan or identify as Satanists. What we're doing is we're thinking critically. We're teaching science. I bet they probably worship Fauci. We're teaching empathy and benevolence, said Hicks. I wonder by what standard they came to the conclusion of empathy and benevolence. I would like to ask Paul Hicks. But a guy named Paul Hicks here in this article will be leading this after-school club, and it has been brought to my attention through my confidential sources that Paul Hicks is a resident right here in Santa Clarita. Now, if Paul Hicks is listening right now, would you call into the studio, KHTS, right here, hometown station, Newhall? Call into the station, and I'd like for you to talk a little bit about what exactly you'd be teaching these kids. You say that you want to teach them critical thinking. I don't think there's anything wrong about that. I would never want to criticize thinking. I think it's good to critically think. But on what basis? And you say you also want to teach empathy and benevolence. According to what standard? So Paul Hicks, if you're listening, I'd love to have you call in. I would love to talk to Paul about the kind of philosophy and the kind of reasoning that is being set forth in this after-school program that is called a Satan Club to our young people. Now, let me ask you this question. Do any of you parents out there think that your children would greatly benefit from a satanic club? I mean, just think critically for a moment here. Now, you're going to probably think, oh, Pastor Cook is cracked. That's not true, I'm not. But from a purely First Amendment perspective, this satanic group has the right to hold this after-school program. Oh, Pastor Cook's nuts. You're smoking something. I haven't smoked anything for weeks. The fact is, this satanic group has the right to hold this after-school program. If the Good News Club has a club on campus, so too should this satanic group. Now, here's what I would say, and here's my caveat. Parents, that's you guys out there that control your kids, parents have the right as parents to simply tell their children they're not going. It's very simple. You say, but what if little Johnny, comes to me and says, I've got a little letter here that says I need a parent's notification that says they'd allow me to go to this club. Well, then you just don't sign it, parents. You say, well, what if he keeps badgering me, and what if she keeps badgering me? Well, then do what my parents did. Just don't listen. Just don't listen. Parents, you have to parent, and you have to let your kids know that they really have no rights until they're out of your house. I remember when I was growing up, I had a door taken off of my bedroom door because I was reminded that I have no privacy. Now, of course, today that would be considered hostile, and it wouldn't be long before little Johnny would take their parents to court to have that door reinstated. But the fact is, folks, you guys need to parent. And so this club would die in a matter of days if we just had some parents step up and say, hey, listen, we're not having this. Little Johnny's not going. Little Jill's not going. And that's that. But I happen to have some contacts up in Tehachapi. And according to these contacts, there is going to be some sort of protest, like a prayer protest rally, whatever that kind of means, on January 5th of next year. Don't exactly know what day that is right now, but anyway, in January 5th of 2023, up in Tehachapi, they're going to be holding some prayer protest for this Satan Club. So if you're interested in attending, then by all means go, because I would hope we want this stopped in Tehachapi as opposed to spreading to Newhall and Hart school districts. What say you? I know that some of the contacts that I have, that live in Tehachapi, one of the reasons why they moved up there was a little conservative bastion in the midst of the state, kind of like where I live. But the fact of the matter is, evil and debauchery and unrighteousness exists everywhere, including these, quote, conservative bastions like Tehachapi. But speaking of Satan, Donald Trump is running for president. At least this is how the left views Trump, not yours truly, of course, so don't think that I've become a leftist trope here. But Trump announced, while I was in Colorado, obviously he must have got the memo, Trump announced his 2024 run last Tuesday at his palatial Mar-a-Lago estate in Florida. And here is a quick snippet of what he had to say. Go ahead, Matt.
In order to make America great and glorious again, I am tonight announcing my candidacy for President of the United States. Together we will be taking on the most corrupt forces and entrenched interests imaginable. Our country is in a horrible state. We're in grave trouble. This is not a task for a politician or a conventional candidate. This is a task for a great movement that embodies the courage, confidence, and the spirit of the American people. This is a movement. This is not for any one individual. This is a job for tens of millions of proud people working together from all across the land and from all walks of life, young and old, black and white, Hispanic and Asian, many of whom we have brought together for the very, very first time.
Well, there you have it. It was about a 25-minute speech. Actually, it was a little longer. I think Fox cut away a little bit, but I watched the majority of it, and I was struck by just how tepid, tame that Trump seemed to be. It was almost as if somebody had coached him and said, calm down and just stick with the script. I think that's a good thing. But it wasn't very long after his announcement last Tuesday that the same things we heard in 2015 about Trump not being able to gain traction is being dusted off and said all over again by the usual crowd. And all I'm going to say about 45 wanting to be 47 is this: don't count him out. In my opinion, and again, it's just my opinion, folks, if Trump keeps his cards close to his vest, curbs his tongue a bit, which of course is very hard from a guy up in the Northeast, and sticks to conservative common sense issues, all of which Trump implemented during his very successful first term in the face of incredible headwinds by the opposing party, including those within his own party, then 45 could potentially be the 47th president of the United States. And one last observation concerning Trump. A lot of things could be said, but here's a final observation. I think that Mike Pence was relatively inconsequential in terms of his Trump's choice as VP in 2016. I do think that Trump's choice for VP this time around will be vitally important than prior. Now you say, what do you mean? What I'm saying is, I think he needs to pick somebody that is going to be equally a firebrand, but maybe not necessarily to the same degree as Donald Trump is. And I have my thoughts as to who this individual could be. And as I was watching the results come in a couple of weeks ago, I was under the impression that Kari Lake in Arizona was going to just trounce Katie Hobbs. And I know that there's still all kinds of little things going on in Arizona about Maricopa and all that kind of stuff. So the jury's still out on what's going on there. And, of course, I want you to think about this real quickly. Can you imagine if Katie Hobbs was a Republican running to be the governor of Arizona, and that Republican Katie Hobbs was also Secretary of State, and she was also in charge of the election and the certification of the election? Can you imagine if that were a Republican? Of course, you can't imagine that. But because she's a Democrat, and a lousy one at that, who can't communicate herself out of a brown paper bag, and refused to debate Carrie Lake, and had all kinds of baggage going into this campaign, for some reason you don't see any problem with this at all, do you? But I think Carrie Lake would be an excellent choice for President Trump. But again, that's just me. If Trump listens to this show, I doubt it. But if he did, hopefully he would take my suggestion there, because I think Carrie Lake not only is great on the camera, much like the president is, but both of them can handle the press masterfully. And I think that is what we need. I think what we saw in Mike Pence was the polar opposite of 45. And in some ways, I think he was the right man for the right time. But looking back, I think it's more important now going forward that that President Trump makes a good choice for VP. But again, that's just me. We'll see what happens. Tomorrow, we'll be celebrating Thanksgiving. At least many of us will around the country. But the woke want to wreck everything about America. The woke hates that America was founded by predominantly white, straight, Protestant men. I wonder if that'll get me off the air for saying that. I'll say that again. The woke hates that America was founded by predominantly white, straight, Protestant men. And because they cannot change that history, they will just simply rewrite it and keep you from finding out the truth. Or, if they really want to go where they want to go with this, is they're going to make it illegal for you to find out the truth. Did you know that the Bible is mainly a book of history? It is decidedly biblical to be accurate concerning your history. If you want to know about how sin came about, why people murder one another, if you want to know about the beginning of government and politics, yes, government and politics, if you want to know about Israel and the geopolitical mess that the world tends to be in, then consider the first 5 books of Moses in your Old Testament: Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, Deuteronomy. So it should not surprise you that the woke left is out to attack and place a stake in the heart of Thanksgiving. And again, you say, well, I don't think that's true. I think that the woke left is actually being real civil. No, they don't like anything about Thanksgiving because it is a decidedly Christian holiday. When we come back here on Politics in the Pulpit, I want to take the woke out of Thanksgiving and kind of give you a little bit of a historical analysis of what went on that first Thanksgiving some 400 years ago, and give you a perspective that perhaps maybe some at school are not getting, and maybe even those of you who attended college in the last 20 years may not have gotten as well. So when we come back here on Politics in the Pulpit, we're going to do our best to take the woke out of Thanksgiving. Again, you're listening to Politics in the Pulpit here with your holy host, Pastor Jerry Cook, on KHTS FM 98.1 and AM 1220. All right, we're back here on Politics in the Pulpit. Again, this is your irreverent Reverend Pastor Jerry Cook here on KHTS. 98.1 FM and AM 1220, your hometown station. We are just a few hours away from the National Day of Thanksgiving, and wanted to take a few moments here during this next few moments to just deal with Thanksgiving, the historical understanding of Thanksgiving, and how the woke left is trying to basically surgically remove that holiday from our collective thinking. You know, you'll probably be surprised to hear me say that Christmas obviously is a Christian holiday, but I think it's been very commercialized. If you go back to even the old Charlie Brown Christmas special, I think they even back then in the mid-1960s were talking about how it was commercialized. And, here we are 55, almost 60 years later, and I'm sure it's as commercial as ever. Easter, of course, the resurrection of the Lord Jesus Christ, obviously a Christian holiday, but even that has been commercialized to a degree. But Thanksgiving, how do you commercialize thankfulness? It's kind of hard to commercialize that. Everyone can be thankful. That's something that no enemy can take from you. But what we have are people that loathe America, people that loathe the fact that predominantly Christian men were founders of this country. Not all of them. I'm not blighted enough to know that not every one of them were where I am, biblically thinking. But the preponderance of them were believers. And there is a element in our society that cannot stand that, cannot abide by that. And so in the last several years, I would say in the last 4 years in particular, we have this woke thing that has come out. Now, woke or wokeness is nothing more than a souped-up version of what it means to be politically correct. I mean, even Bill Maher had a show called Politically Incorrect, and Bill Maher today is sounding more and more like a moderate than he was like a liberal a few years ago. But while the word woke simply means the opposite of slumber or sleep, the left has come in and defined the word using cultural appropriation. So the word woke now means, quote, aware of and actively attentive to important facts and issues, specifically as it relates to racial and social injustice. So mind you, woke is slang and was never defined in this manner prior to 2018. You would have never heard anybody on any news channel, any alphabet channel, who said or defined themselves as woke prior to 2018. Why? Because no one ever used the term in the way it's been defined recently. So although the redefined term woke has only been around for about 3 years, give or take, the left has not wasted any time in analyzing all of American history through this new lens of wokeness. And the celebration of Thanksgiving is front and center. So what the woke are saying about the first Thanksgiving, as we said at the outset of the show, they say that the National Day of Thanksgiving should be changed to a National Day of Mourning because the Pilgrims killed and oppressed the natives. Now let me just stop for a second. I'm not going to sit here and tell you that Pilgrims didn't kill natives, and I'm not going to tell you that natives didn't kill Pilgrims. There is always a little bit of a distrust between peoples. There always has been, there always will be. It's kind of in our sinful nature. It's just the way it is. But sadly, many modern portrayals of the Pilgrims are at best superficial. Too often, they reflect a trend by some in academia of attacking and vilifying traditional American heroes, presenting a picture quite different from what actually occurred. So enter wokeness. The woke crowd often will bring up 3 conflicts involving Pilgrims and Native Indians to support their claim that this first Thanksgiving should be a national day of mourning, and they always point to the Pequot War of 1637, the King Philip's War of 1675, and the 1623 initial clash between the natives and the Pilgrims. In each case, no doubt, natives and Pilgrims clashed. Both sides were killed. But was this the norm? Does history bear out that these kinds of conflicts increased and were the norm between natives and the Pilgrims? So what about the Pilgrims? What about Chief Massasoit? And what about Squanto? Those are two names of two Native Americans that we've heard down through history. We've probably, no doubt, heard their names mentioned in world history classes. But what about the connection between the Pilgrims, Chief Massasoit, and Squanto? When the Pilgrims first arrived to form a new colony in Massachusetts, it was at the onset of winter, arriving with practically the clothes on their backs, with no dwellings and no knowledge of the land in general. Of the 100 or so people who originally set out on the Mayflower, more than half of them died that first winter. The next spring, the Mayflower returned to England, but not one of the surviving Pilgrims chose to go back. They all stayed because they had not come for personal convenience or, frankly, for monetary reward. They came predominantly for religious and civil liberty and to become what they called stepping stones for others to follow after them and to do the same here in the New World. It was in that spring, after that very deadly winter, folks, where half the population died, that the Pilgrims had their first encounter with the natives. Enter one Samoset and Chief Massasoit and Squanto. While two of the natives spoke broken English, it was Squanto who actually spoke relatively fluent English. How ironic that they would meet three natives who spoke English and one in particular who spoke it very well. Through Squanto's help, the Pilgrims learned the art of husbandry, that's farming for those of you who are part of our new school system, in the New World. For the second winter, the Pilgrims were much better prepared, and things looked much better than they had preceding year when half of the colonists had died. It was then, after this very successful harvest, that Governor William Bradford, the governor that came over on the Mayflower with Pilgrims, therefore appointed a day of thanksgiving, for they had truly much to be thankful for. They now had a place where they could freely worship God. They had food in their bellies, a will to continue, all with the help of those early natives. Thus, we come to the first Thanksgiving. Grateful for their blessings, the Pilgrims invited their native friends to celebrate and to give thanks to God with them. Chief Massasoit and 90 of his menace and men feasted with the remaining Pilgrims. That abundant feast contained deer, turkey, fish, lobster, eels, vegetables, there were even vegetarians back then, cornbread, various herbs, berries, and pies. Sounds an awful lot, kind of like what we do, minus the deer probably. Afterwards, after they had this bountiful harvest and they all sat down together to eat, afterwards they engaged in athletic competitions with the natives, which included running, wrestling, and shooting in particular. Chief Massasoit and his men enjoyed themselves so much they stayed for 3 whole days. Now, doesn't that sound a little bit kind of like our holiday here? Not only do we eat like the world's coming to an end on Thanksgiving, but then what do we do afterwards? We all go watch what? Predominantly a football game. Right, Matt? That's right. Football game. That's a big deal. Some of us actually go out and brave the elements, depending on where we live in the country, and we play the game or we do whatever we have to do. But the fact is, it seems like this tradition has not been broken in 400 years. To this day, that tradition of feasting and athletics continues. But then, the woke have to come in and ruin it all. But let me just say that this first Thanksgiving between the Pilgrims, or if you will, the white man, and the red man, this first Thanksgiving debunks everything about the woke narrative. Now, let me just say, again, I'm not saying that there wasn't any problems between the Pilgrims and the natives initially. There's always going to be problems. People always look at people differently, especially if this is the first time we're meeting them. I'm not going to say that the Pilgrims were saints and they had everything right, And hopefully you would say that the natives didn't have everything right either. But I will say that these three natives in particular helped the Pilgrims out in such a way that we still, over 400 years later, continue in these traditions in 2022. You see, the woke narrative states that the natives loathe the Pilgrims because of their land-grabbing practices and general racist disdain for the natives. Now, you think maybe there might have been one or two racists in the Pilgrims? I'm sure. You think there might have been a few racists within the natives towards the Pilgrims? Well, yeah, why not? But if the account of the first Thanksgiving is true, and it is, then the woke allegations are both illogical and completely unfounded. Now, I want you to think about this. The 53 remaining Pilgrims were comprised of 4 women, 14 young boys and girls, and only 22 men. Let me say that again. The 53 remaining Pilgrims that did not die after that first horrible winter were comprised of 4 women, 14 young boys and girls, and only 22 adult men. On the other hand, the 90 natives were all warriors. If there had been any ill will, the Indians could have eliminated the Pilgrims in a matter of minutes. But they didn't. You know why? Because they were friends and had gained a mutual trust between each other. So what about the claim of the Pilgrims being a bunch of land grabbers? Well, I want you to think about this. The Pilgrims were predominantly Christian men. So they believed and practiced the principle of thou shalt not steal. The Pilgrims purchased much of their land from the natives at a mutually agreed upon price. We call this capitalism. This policy of buying land from the natives came to characterize the general practice of New England and portions of the mid-Atlantic colonies, which was mirrored by the Puritans in Rhode Island and in other parts of the New World. So again, based upon the principle of thou shalt not steal, these early Pilgrims were not going to just, quote, grab land. And here's what's interesting. To this day, the longest peace agreement signed was between the Pilgrims and the Wampanoag Indians, signed April 1st, 1621, and that's not an April Fool's joke. That agreement stated, quote, agreeing to do no harm to each other, to come to each other's aid if attacked by third parties, and to have equal jurisdiction over offenders. Wow. Does that sound like there was a disdain and a bloodthirst rivalry between them? Again, listen closely. I'm not saying we live in a perfect world. The woke is trying to make things perfect by forcing things and by canceling things, but it can't be perfect. That treaty between the Wampanoag and the natives, the Pilgrims, was honored for over 50 years. So as I said at the outset, accurate history is important. This account of the Pilgrims and the natives is just one more proof of God's providential hand in the founding of this nation that we call the United States. Just think what would have happened if those remaining 53 Pilgrims who survived that first tragic winter were to have left for England on the Mayflower that next spring. What if they had gone? They'd given up. They'd said, yep, we're heading back to England. But because they stayed, despite the bitter hardship, God providentially moved in the lives of 3 natives. Yes, 3. Chief Massasoit, Squanto, and Samoset, to enter into the equation to give the Pilgrims the tools they needed to survive and thrive in what would be later called the United States of America. Just think about the providence for a brief moment. 3 natives who've never seen a white guy, and they just happen to speak English? The Continental Congress declared the first National Day of Thanksgiving on December 18th, 1777, and then in 1789, our first president, George Washington, declared the last Thursday in November a national day of Thanksgiving. And of course, now for 230 plus years later, it's always been the last Thursday in November. So I say, closing out this segment of the show, do not be ashamed of your American history. Do not be ashamed of your biblical history. And truth is truth no matter where you find it. The way to counteract wokeness is by the truth. And as the scripture tells us, the truth shall make you free. So when we come back here on Politics in the Pulpit, we're going to round out the show with some things that I'm thankful for, and hopefully some things that you're thankful for as well. And we'll be back here in just a minute here on Politics in the Pulpit, here on KHTS, your hometown station, AM 1220 and 98.1 FM.
Welcome to the San Diego Zoo Safari Park, where life-changing moments happen daily. Trek on safari and discover 1,800 acres of sprawling savannas teeming with wildlife and world-class botanical gardens. Encounter rhinos, giraffes, wildebeests, and large herds of wildlife roaming together. Journey through the bamboo forest and come face-to-face with Sumatran tigers. Hop alongside kangaroos and dive underwater to meet the only two platypuses outside of Australia. Experience the awe-inspiring giants of Elephant Valley. You'll discover adventures in every moment, and a moment can change a lifetime. The San Diego Zoo Safari Park.
No words can describe the power of belonging to a group of close friends or being part of a family. Insight Treatment Center was founded more than 20 years ago to give teenagers a community of friends and family as they overcome issues like depression, anxiety, and trauma. The new Santa Clarita location is a COVID-secure environment where distance and good airflow are a priority. As a leader in providing intensive outpatient treatment to teenagers, Insight Treatment Center in Santa Clarita is here to help. Call 888-295-9995 or go online to insighttreatment.com.
If you need a new door, Preferred Glass and Windows has you covered. Don't let the name fool you. Preferred Glass and Windows is the one-stop glass shop, but they also do high-quality door installation with a variety of products, including vinyl, fiberglass, aluminum, wood-clad, and wood. Entry doors, wardrobe doors, patio doors, metal security doors, security screen doors, swinging and sliding doors, and also storefront door repair. Various grid patterns and etched glass is also available. Installation typically takes only a day, and it's backed by a lifetime guarantee. For more information, 255-1170.
It's no wonder people love Baskin-Robbins. 31 delicious flavors of ice cream. Celebrate with your favorite ice cream served any way you want, including the special flavor of the month. Baskin-Robbins, now open on Lyons Avenue in Newhall under new Santa Clarita family ownership, is the first Southern California hybrid design store for Baskin-Robbins and the oldest location in Santa Clarita, over 45 years. America's favorite neighborhood ice cream shop is just one scoop away. Baskin-Robbins, the perfect dessert for your next celebration.
If you need a new door, Preferred Glass and Windows has you covered. Don't let the name fool you. Preferred Glass and Windows is the one-stop glass shop, but they also do high-quality door installation with a variety of products, including vinyl, fiberglass, aluminum, wood-clad, and wood. Entry doors, wardrobe doors, patio doors, metal security doors, security screen doors, swinging and sliding doors, and also storefront door repair. Various grid patterns and etched glass is also available. Installation typically takes only a day, and it's backed by a lifetime guarantee. For more information, 255-1170.
It's like no other station I've ever listened to. It's great.
Your hometown station.
All right, here in our last few moments of Politics in the Pulpit on KHTS, your hometown station, 98.1 FM and AM 1220. We've had the privilege of talking about Satan groups. We've talked about Trump throwing in his hat for the 2024 presidential campaign. And we talked a little bit about taking the woke out of Thanksgiving. But I thought maybe for the next few moments here, we might talk about some things that we're all thankful for. I mean, we're going to have an opportunity to gather around the table of plenty with family and friends. Even if you don't like your family and friends, you're going to have an opportunity to gather around with them. But this last Sunday, I preached a message at our church entitled Thanksgiving No Matter What, based upon two verses in the New Testament, Ephesians chapter 5 and 1 Thessalonians chapter 5, where the Apostle Paul tells us, in everything give thanks, for this is the will of God in Christ Jesus concerning you. And that doesn't mean to be thankful because you're being tortured or anything like that. It just means there's a good spirit of being thankful. And nobody can take that from you. And I want to just kind of go through a few things I'm thankful for. And maybe that's something you can do in your mind's eye right now. But I can say emphatically, I'm thankful for my family. I've got a wonderful wife, beautiful wife, and I've got 3 wonderful kids. I've got a teenager. I'm even thankful for him. He's working today, so working with one of the men from our church. So I'm going to go pick him up down the street after the broadcast today. But I'm just glad that he wants to get up and work on the vacation week. Traditionally this is the week when the kids sleep in, but he'll only have tomorrow morning to sleep in, and I'll let him sleep in as long as he wants. But he's worked the last 3 days, and he'll work this Friday. So I'm thankful for my family. I'm thankful for my country. Yeah, things didn't go the way I really wanted them to go during the midterms. Yeah, things didn't go the way I wanted them to go in 2020 when it comes to the presidential elections. But it doesn't really matter. I'm still thankful for the country that I live in. It's still the greatest country this side of heaven. It's still the greatest form of government on the face of the globe. I wouldn't want to live anywhere else unless, of course, I felt led to go to that other location. But as far as I'm concerned, I want to live in America. And in particular, I want to live in California. Now, some of you that are listening to that think that's nuts. But yeah, I kind of gotten used to California. You have to get used to this state. But I'm thankful for my country. I'm thankful for my church. I have the greatest job on the face of the planet. I have the privilege to serve the King of Kings. I have the privilege to steward over the sheep that he has allowed me to steward over. They're not my sheep. They're his sheep. And one of these days I'll have to answer for how I stewarded over them to the king, the grand shepherd himself, the good shepherd himself. And so I realize that they're not my sheep. I realize I can't take them for advantage. I can't take advantage of them. I can't do things that are wrong. I've got to make sure that I realize that they're the king's sheep and they're not my sheep. But I'm thankful for my church and the privilege to serve the king. I'm thankful in particular, if we kind of bring it more to home here, I'm thankful for the city and the district where I reside. We had some good, as I was mentioning at the outset here, we had some bad results when it came to the midterms, but not in terms of this district. In terms of this district where I am, the 27th Congressional District, our congressman, first time around, only won by 333 votes, which underscores the fact that every vote counts. But this time around, he won by a spread of about 8 to 9 points against Christy Smith. That means that he has solidified himself with this district. And that's a good thing. We're represented by a good congressional district. We have some good city council people. Every Families First school board representative that ran, every one of them won their district. So I'm thankful for the city, the district where I reside. I'm proud of our city. I love our city. I'm thankful for my health. Just a few days ago, actually a few weeks ago, I should say, I got some blood tests back because I was concerned about where my health was, and things came back pretty good. I was a little concerned that I might have had, the C word, but that doesn't seem to be the case. So the blood test came back pretty good. I was glad for that. You ever thank God for your appetite? That's one of the first things the doctors will say to you if you go to the doctor and you're ill. They'll say, how's your eating habits? You ever thank God you can eat well? I mean, tomorrow you're going to be able to really practice on that appetite, right? But I'm thankful for my appetite. Now, I want you to think about this. No matter how screwed things up can be, and things can get screwed up, whether you screwed them up or the government screwed them up or somebody in your family screwed them up or whatever, you can always be thankful for something. You ever thank God for a good night's sleep? A lot of people out there can't get to sleep at night. Some people don't even have a bed. You ever thank God you got one? So this Thanksgiving, I'm encouraging you to start a new tradition, if you haven't done so already, around the table. Go around the table and each individual express their thankfulness for at least one thing. There was a time I used to thank God that I have hair. Now I can't do that anymore because God's kind of individually pulling them out. But for those of you that have hair, a.k.a. Matt sitting here behind the COVID mask, he's got hair. Let me kind of end the show by giving a few shameless plugs, if I might. If you are a parent looking for a school for your young people, Lighthouse Christian Academy through Freedom's Way Baptist Church would be a great choice for you. Christine Oregon is our contact for that. Again, that's Lighthouse Christian Academy, where we educate, we do not indoctrinate. If you're looking for a Christmas Eve candlelight service on December 24th at Freedom's Way Baptist Church, we'll be having a Christmas Eve candlelight service at 6:30 p.m. And if your church has called off Christmas morning services, we haven't at Freedom's Way Baptist Church. Christmas morning service, December 25th at 10:30 a.m. Encourage you to come out to all of those activities if your church happens to not have any of those activities happening there. But at the same time, I'd encourage you to look up, be thankful, enjoy the food, don't take anything for granted. And next week, we'll be talking to Chaplain Bob Keller from In Pursuit Ministries. You're listening to Pastor Cook, your holy host with Politics in the Pulpit on your hometown station. We'll catch you next week.